along the rugged, unforgiving shores of New England, where the Atlantic gnawed at the granite bones of the coast and the ceaseless cries of gulls stitched the sky to the sea, there stood a small village of fishermen, its salt-scoured wooden homes clinging to the land like barnacles to a ship's hull. In this quiet, windswept place where the rhythm of life was dictated by the turning of the tides, lived a fisherman and his young son, Samuel. Their cottage was perched so precariously close to the water's edge that the sea was not merely a neighbor, but a constant member of their household. At night, the boy fell into slumber carried on the deep, percussive lullaby of the tides, and each morning he was gently awoken by the briny breath of the ocean drifting through the open windows, a scent of salt and distance that clung to the very timbers of their home. Every dawn, in the grey liminal hour before the sun had begun its slow work of painting the horizon with fire and gold, Samuel's father would move through the quiet cottage. His silhouette against the nascent light was one of profound strength and purpose, as he pushed his small, sturdy boat, the Sea Lark, into the murmuring water. Samuel would watch his father's powerful arms, corded with the muscle of a lifetime's labor, cast the heavy, woven nets into the deep with a fluid grace that seemed a silent prayer to the ocean. His weathered face, a landscape carved by sun and sea spray, would hold an expression of immense patience, a deep and knowing stillness that only years of watching the waters could teach. Close behind, Samuel followed, his small hands struggling to balance a large wooden basket that seemed determined to pull him back to the earth. In the shared silence of these mornings, broken only by the lap of water and the creak of oarlocks, the boy learned the sacred language of the sea, absorbing its mysteries in a state of silent wonder. His father's voice, when it came, was often a low rumble, a piece of wisdom offered like a smooth stone found upon the shore, words that Samuel would turn over and over in his mind. The sea, his father would often explain, is a generous mother, my boy, but she is also a wild and unpredictable thing. We must accept her gifts with gratitude and above all with honesty. One bright crystalline afternoon, as a gentle breeze billowed the sails hanging to dry, the fisherman sat mending a torn sail, his needle moving with practiced precision. He felt more than saw, his son's gaze fixed not on his work, but on the restless, glittering expanse of the waves. Samuel's small body was thrumming with a desire that had been building within him like a rising tide. Finally, his voice, barely a whisper against the vastness of the sea, broke the comfortable silence. He asked his father if just for this one day, he might be allowed to fish on his own. The fisherman paused his work, setting the needle down carefully. He turned and truly studied his son. He saw the fierce hope burning in the boy's eyes, the restless energy in his hands that longed to hold a rod instead of just a basket. He saw the reflection of his own youth, a memory of the same yearning for independence, the same desire to prove oneself against the great, indifferent ocean. A slow, warm smile spread across his face, crinkling the lines around his eyes. He rose, went into the cottage, and returned with a simple fishing rod, its wooden handle worn smooth and dark by the passage of time and the grip of his own hand. Handing it to his son felt like passing a sacred trust. He told Samuel to go, but to always remember that the sea has a way of testing every heart. It watches, it gives, and it takes, and his only instruction was to take only what was rightfully and honestly his. The boy's heart felt as if it would burst from his chest. His bare feet barely seemed to touch the pier as he ran, a blur of pure excitement. The old wooden planks groaned a familiar song under his weight as he raced to the very end, to the place where the world felt as though it was only water and sky. With a deep breath, he cast his line, the hook arcing through the air before piercing the shimmering surface of the deep. The water below was a pane of green and blue glass, reflecting the sun in a million dazzling points of light. For a long while, nothing stirred. The world was still. Samuel waited, his initial excitement mellowing into a focused patience, a mimicry of the quiet strength he so admired in his father. He watched the subtle dance of the light on the water, felt the sun warm his shoulders, and listened to the gentle music of the waves against the pier's pilings. Then a sudden violent tug, the rod bent into a dramatic arc, the tip plunging towards the water. The boy's eyes widened in disbelief and adrenaline. Something immense and powerful was pulling from the depths, a force that seemed determined to pull him into the sea with it. He braced his small feet against the weathered planks, his knuckles white as he gripped the rod, his heart hammering against his ribs like a trapped bird. He pulled back with every ounce of his might, a silent, Desperate battle between the small boy and the unseen creature. Water erupted, the line quivered with a high singing tension, and at last, a magnificent fish burst from the sea into the sunlit air. It was a vision of liquid silver, its scales flashing like 1,000 scattered coins, its body a powerful curve of muscle and life. Samuel gasped, his breath catching in his throat. It was the largest, most beautiful fish he had ever seen, a creature of myth and legend brought into his world. A wave of immense pride washed over him, so potent it made him dizzy. He could already hear the villagers' murmurs of awe, see the look on his father's face. His father, he whispered to the wind, would be so proud. He gripped the struggling fish tightly, its life force a vibrant thrumming against his palms, and was just about to lower it into the waiting emptiness of his basket. But then, a sound so soft it was almost part of the sea's whisper, the shuffle of soft footsteps. An old man stood at the far end of the pier, a figure who seemed to have materialized from the sea mist itself. His clothes were ragged and faded to the color of driftwood. His long beard was as white and wild as sea foam, and his eyes held the deep, calm wisdom of the ocean itself. He moved with a slow, deliberate grace, and when he spoke, his voice was gentle, like the turning of shells in the surf. He pointed a long, bony finger towards the magnificent fish still gasping in Samuel's hands. "That one," he said, "a creature of such splendor is not yours to keep." He urged the young boy to look closer, explaining that this very fish had been caught that morning in his father's nets, only to wriggle free through a tear. "See there," the old man murmured, "the small specific mark on its fin where the net had snagged it. The sea, in its mysterious ways, has returned it by mistake." Samuel stared, his joy instantly curdling into confusion. He tilted the fish to the light, and there, undeniable and clear, was the mark his father always made, a tiny notch, his unique signature on the sea's bounty. His heart plummeted into a cold, dark place. The fish wriggled in his hands, its powerful, gleaming body a tangible promise of a grand meal, a heroic story, a moment of glory that would elevate him from a boy to a fisherman in the eyes of the village. A storm of conflict rose inside him, a tempest as fierce as any that battered the coast. A greedy voice urged him to keep it, to let this be his moment. No one would ever know. It would be his proof, his trophy. But then another voice, quieter but more persistent, whispered the words his father had spoken that very afternoon. It was a voice of conscience, a reminder that the sea gives, but one must take with honesty. His small arms trembled under the weight of the fish, which now felt impossibly heavy, burdened not by its size, but by the choice it represented. He looked once more at the shimmering, perfect creature, a treasure from the deep. Then his gaze lifted to the endless, impartial water stretching out to the horizon. With a deep, shuddering breath that seemed to tear the decision from his very soul, Samuel bent low over the edge of the pier. He gently lowered the magnificent fish back into its world. For a moment it lingered in his hands, and then with a powerful flick of its tail that sent a splash of cold, salty water onto his face like a baptism, it slipped free. Its silver form flashed once in the depths before vanishing completely into the vast, mysterious blue. When Samuel straightened up and wiped the salt from his cheek, the pier was empty. The old man was gone, having vanished as seamlessly and silently as he had appeared, as though he were nothing more than a spirit of the waves and the air, a manifestation of the sea's test. The boy stood alone on the pier, the sun warming his back, his wooden basket profoundly empty, his heart aching with the strange combination of loss and a peculiar unfamiliar lightness. That evening, as the sun began its descent, bleeding crimson and gold across the sky, Samuel walked the slow path home. His father looked up from the nearly mended sail and saw the empty basket dangling from his son's hand. He saw the slumped shoulders and the downcast eyes, and a pang of sympathy went through him. But before he could offer a word of comfort, Samuel began to speak. The whole story tumbled out: the glorious fish, the impossible fight, the surge of pride, the sudden appearance of the strange old man, the undeniable mark upon the fin, and the painful final choice he had made. The fisherman listened in complete silence, his hands still, his gaze never leaving his son's face. When the tale was finished, a profound quiet settled between them, filled only by the distant call of the gulls. Then he rose and placed both of his large, calloused hands on Samuel's small shoulders, his grip firm and steady. His voice, when he finally spoke, was low but resonated with a depth of feeling that filled the small space around them. He told his son that while he may have returned a single fish to the sea, he had brought back something infinitely greater: his own integrity. Fish, he explained, can fill a basket for a day, but a foundation of honesty fills a life for all its years. That, he declared, his eyes shining with a pride far greater than any fish could have inspired, was the truest and most valuable catch of all. That night, as the last colors of the sunset faded into a deep, star-dusted twilight, Samuel sat alone by the shore. The waves rolled in, calm and endless, whispering secrets to the stones. He finally understood. Though his hands were empty and his basket held only the scent of the sea, his heart was full to overflowing. He had learned a lesson that the ocean itself had conspired to teach him, that the true worth of a person is never measured by what they manage to hold in their hands, but by the unshakable truth they choose to carry in their actions.